so many great companies are built in recessions. And part of it's because it thins out the crowd. Part of it's because it's actually easier to break through right now. Like, this is a great time to invest in marketing because it's easier to get your message across.
Hello and welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about creating financial success with a special focus on business and real estate. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Now, let's get to it. Hello, welcome back to Pillars of Wealth Creation. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. With me today, I'm excited to have Bill Bice. Bill, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. It's good to be with you.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. A little bit about Bill. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's been an entrepreneur since 14, and he was helping do like road races, which is crazy. He's just passionate about enabling smaller businesses to more successfully compete with their larger competitors through effective marketing. Through the years, Bill has built and invested in over 25 companies, but he kept finding the same flaws in marketing strategies. So, a programmer at heart, he founded Boomtime, a company that tackles marketing as a technology problem. And I'll let Bill kind of talk through some of these businesses, some of the strategies, some of the mistakes, all that kind of stuff. And then what really Boomtime is all about, why he started that business. So Bill, can you start us off with just a little bit more about your background? I mentioned the shortened version. Obviously, there's a lot more here. So give us a little bit more about your background and why our listeners should pay attention to you.
Well, I'm not totally sure you should, because I've made a ton of mistakes, but maybe share some of those. I feel like I've made enough that I like helping business owners and entrepreneurs at least make new mistakes as opposed to do the same stuff I've already done. You know, I feel like I was born an entrepreneur. You mentioned I started a small business when I was getting bored in high school. So I would jump over the fence and landed in this little strip mall that was right there. And there was a local family that had built sort of a sporting goods empire with 3 stores in this one little strip mall. And that got me exposure to small business at a very, very early age. The husband and wife team of that business helped me get going in my first business, which was putting on marathons and 5Ks and 10Ks. And that was a great early education in business. And I turned that into doing computer consulting for a lot of local companies, which led to creating a software company when I was 18. And, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, but I was 18, so I thought I knew it all. And therefore it took me a long time to figure out how to build that company. But eventually we figured it out and became the largest in our niche and got a really nice exit selling that company to Thomson Reuters. That's what made it possible for me to go out and start several more companies and invest in a whole series of them.
Interesting. And when you started that company, as you said, invest in a bunch of them. Have you built most of the companies from the ground up? Has it been an acquiring strategy? How have you gone about that with your other businesses?
Yeah, so I really just did my first acquisition of an established company just this past December, which so most of the things I've worked on have been a startup from ground up. And it turns out that's really difficult. Yeah. And one of the challenges with that first company, even though it took 15 years to build it, the last 5 years, we had a 78% CAGR over that time period. So we're almost doubling every year. We ended up on the Inc. 500 for 3 years in a row. So it was a great ride. Selling that company got me on the management team of a $2 billion division of a much larger company. So I went from my 120 employees to being part of this management team that had, thousands and thousands of employees. And all of that was just an amazing education. But the thing that was most crazy about that is I was really expecting this like amazing sophistication when I got to be part of this, large international business. But honestly, it was run just like my little company. Just there was a lot more zeros after. It was just, it was the same discussions, the same craziness. And so I learned a lot about business by going through that. And I really learned that I much prefer doing it for myself, right? I went and created a new division within that company, which was a very different kind of experience. But you don't really get the reward for creating that success like you do when you build it yourself. So most of it has been startups, and really out of that came this experience that how good you are at marketing really determines how much result you get out of all this hard work of whatever it is you build. Whatever product, service, offering you have, how good you are at taking to market really determines the payoff that you get.
Yeah, interesting that and it's the same in my business when I look at the difference between a 20 unit apartment building to 100 unit apartment building to a 1,000 unit apartment building. It's all basically the same, right? You think, oh, it's going to be these big differences. No, it's the same. So just interesting to hear you say the same thing about business. Talk about boomtime. What is it? What are you trying to do? How are you helping people solve a problem?
Well, so marketing is this like crazy discipline that just avoids attempts at scale and efficiency. And it's not something that we're really willing to accept in any other area of our business. And so that's why I found it so interesting to tackle. I mean, you go into marketing because you don't want people to understand what you do. Like it's almost a way to hide. And there's just something wrong with that we've allowed that to continue for so long in business. And yet, in some ways, marketing has become so complicated and so sophisticated now that if you don't get really good at it as a smaller player in the market, it becomes really difficult to compete. So I think it's a really interesting problem to solve. And it requires a combination of both automation and the right expertise. There's a lot of great technology out there, all kinds of marketing automation stuff, but then do you have the time and the resources to actually put it in place? And a lot of business owners just don't have the desire to do that. Mm-hmm. So our unique approach was to put both of those things together: build the platform plus deliver the expertise, and really give the end result. So you're not just buying a bunch of tools that never get used.
Got it. What through these businesses and through your current what you're doing currently, give us some success tips. What have you seen that has been attributed to your success? So give us maybe 3 success tips that you really think are the go-to.
Well, so I'll start with what I think is one of the most underappreciated elements of success in business, which is something you don't have much control over, which is timing. I mean, you can take the same exact team, same idea, same market, and just change your time to market, and you get a dramatically different result. So I think a key to success in business is having the persistence to stay in the game long enough. You work really hard to then get what seems like luck. And it is, in the sense that you don't really control the timing. But yet if you stay after it, you stay at it long enough that eventually the timing lines up with the opportunity that you're creating. And I think that element is just so underappreciated. I mean, we look at, say, Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. Most of the things I've done are in tech, and so you tend to follow entrepreneurs like that.
Yeah.
And yet, if they weren't born exactly when they were, and didn't happen to both go to schools that had computers at a time period when the vast majority didn't, and didn't get that early exposure, and didn't see the opportunity, I'm sure they would have been successful, right? Because they were very driven, intelligent people. Mm-hmm. But without that just perfect lineup of opportunities in front of them, we wouldn't be talking about them, because all the things necessary wouldn't have happened. The timing was just perfect for Bill Gates to be Bill Gates.
So is there anything we can do other than just being born at the right time, or just lucking into our business at the right time to hit the timing? Or is it just what you said, persistence?
Well, it's why I focus on persistence, because I think it's so easy to say, oh, I tried that, and I tried really hard for a year and it didn't work.
Sure.
And yet so many of the things that I have worked on that have been successful, it took a lot longer than than I was expecting. And a big part of that was the timing component. It's so easy to be too early or too late. You have to stick with it long enough for it to work out.
Uh, and I want to say something there, because you just said too early, right? And we be persistent and we push on and eventually you'll catch it. But how about too late? Like, how do you know that you're too late versus too early and time to like pull this plug because we are too late? Maybe we should just either fold our business or sell it, or, you know, move in a different direction.
Pivot, right?
Yeah.
Make a significant change in the business. And
Yeah.
And I think the only way to do that is for the CEO, the founder, to be on the front line initially. Because if you outsource the sales, even if you bring in a really great salesperson, you're always going to question, are they not getting the sales because they aren't good enough? Or is it because you really don't have the right product market fit? The only person who can truly make all the changes in the business necessary, whatever the product is, the price, the audience, the only person who can really do that is the founding team.
Yep.
And therefore you have to be, as the founder, out in the market doing those early iterations in order to figure out whether you've got the fit right or not. And if you're too late, then you're going to get that customer feedback and you pivot. The hard part, frankly, is understanding, is it too early or too late? Those can seem very similar, right, in terms of the customer feedback. But, I'm a huge fan of the lean startup approach, and this iterative approach gives you the data to understand whether you're hitting the market right or not. But the biggest mistake I see over and over again, and because I've made it and I've worked with entrepreneurs who've made it, is if you're not doing it yourself, if you're not on the front line, you're just not going to make the decisions fast enough to take advantage of whatever opportunity you find.
Sure. So along with timing, obviously being persistent in it, what else do you see to attribute to your success or other successes that you see out there?
Well, I think there's another problem that goes with that, which is trying to scale too early. So you go out there and you do it yourself and you fix all those problems, right? You really get it to match and you get early success and you get customers signed up, you get revenue coming in. It is very tempting to immediately scale up and jump to the next level. But until you've really made that a reproducible process, and I think this applies to no matter what your business is, until you've really made it a blueprint that you can copy and execute over and over again, you're not really ready to scale. And in so many great businesses that really have nailed everything else, then create failure by trying to go too fast.
Yeah, I hear that quite a bit. That business that catch fire and then all of a sudden they're truly on fire and the sales are burning and the ship is burning and all of a sudden, before you know it, you're like, whoa, that company was just there, now it's gone. Like what happened? They seemed like they were doing so well. Well, very well could be that they just tried to grow much too quick and didn't have that blueprint, as you mentioned.
You can get overextended. I mean, that's happening to a ton of companies right now in this crisis.
Yeah. What do you think about that? With what's going on right now with COVID and the shutdowns, and obviously businesses are suffering. What do you think about debt structuring and everything that's going on? Give me your input there.
Well, if you're able to survive through this, then you're in a position to come out much stronger. Like so many great companies are built in recessions. And part of it's because it thins out the crowd. Part of it's because it's actually easier to break through right now. Like this is a great time to invest in marketing because it's easier to get your message across. You're not going to increase your sales, but you're going to plant a bunch of seeds that translate into much greater sales on the recovery on the other side. But if you're in a position where you can look at the opportunity, the thing that the silver lining of a crisis like this is that every trend you've been looking at in your industry, whatever business you're working on, has just been dramatically sped up. I mean, we're all right now living through a decade in 1 year, and wherever you thought things were going to be at 10 years from now, it's now.
Yep. This is the paradigm shift.
Yes.
And every cycle like this is a paradigm shift. And a lot of people don't understand that. Like, well, oh, why though? No, this is a big paradigm shift. And it's a different paradigm shift from the last recession. And it's a different paradigm shift from the next, recession.
So if you can figure that out and you can understand how remote work, how everything going online, how everybody expecting whatever product or service they want to be delivered the moment they want it, how that's going to change your business.
Mm-hmm.
If you can go through the transformation process right now and be prepared for that, then you're going to be a huge winner on the other side of this.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And like you said, I mean that marketing right now and figuring, okay, how do we position our business to the paradigm shift, the trends that are changing, and planting those seeds. And I like how you said that, because a lot of companies and people think, well, for one, I got to pull back, right? Because I don't want to spend more money. Well, get creative. You might be able to actually up your marketing without spending that much more money. So get creative. And then you have to understand that, like you said, you're planting seeds. So just because your revenues don't change today, and actually maybe even still go down, doesn't mean that they're not going to go up drastically when the shift happens. And that's what so many people forget. That's something that I'm doing, and I'm sure you're doing, is we're trying to position ourselves so when we come out of this, we come out of this stronger and not as somebody that everybody forgot about.
And that's the danger. So many companies are going dark right now,
Yeah.
and that's going to create really lasting damage for those businesses. And yet
we're so long to build it. Like, what are you doing? It took you so long to get your name out there, and you're letting people forget about you.
And yet what we see in the data is that marketing is working amazingly well right now, because you have a lot more engagement from a lot more people who are sitting at home on their computers. They're online. You can get to them right this second. So
yeah,
we're seeing websites with 50, 80, 100% more traffic. The average LinkedIn engagement is up 55%.
wow.
The acceptance rate of LinkedIn connections has dramatically improved. The number of people responding to conversations on LinkedIn has almost doubled in campaigns that we're running right now. It's crazy how well it's working right now.
Yeah, I mean, I just had a conversation with a very, very high up, president of a big REIT that never would have talked to me prior to this, and it's just the engagement level is so much more, it seems like, right now, and they're willing to just take a conversation with me. So it's just amazing what you can do right now. Like you said, that engagement is there. People are willing to hear, willing to listen, willing to engage with you if you're willing to put yourself out there right now.
Yeah, I was spending my life on Zoom before this, because I was already working at home. We'd already taken our company virtual.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting is that today, when I start up a Zoom session with somebody for the first time, 90% of the time now, they start with video on, where before it was maybe half the time, right? It's already created that psychology shift. And if whatever you do is dependent on face-to-face meetings, then you have to find a new way to create those opportunities.
Yeah.
And so, although Zoom may not be as good as face-to-face, Zoom is much better than being on a phone call. And
yes.
Because of that, you can actually increase the depth of the relationship much faster, because you're starting on Zoom now. You're not doing all these phone calls to then end up with travel expense to go to a face-to-face meeting.
Yeah. And I find myself being so much more engaged with somebody when I've got a Zoom versus a phone call. I might be walking around my house. I might be looking outside. The squirrels are running up trees, and I'm paying attention to that. But you and I were engaged. I'm looking at you in the eyes. I can see when you smile. I can see when you make a weird face. Like, oh, I must have piqued his interest, whatever. And so it's just so much more engaging, like you said, and which is amazing. It's not quite face to face, but it's as close as we can get virtually, right?
Right. And I think you can get there a lot faster because of it, right? You can make more connections more quickly because you've got the time to do so, and you're doing it online.
Yeah.
And there's going to be pent up demand for travel and for conferences on the other side of this, but it's never going to go back to the way it was. There's way too long of a time period where this is getting new habits ingrained. So figure out now how that's going to change how you do business, because then you'll be ahead of the curve.
As an entrepreneur, as somebody going, hey, I want to start a business, I want to buy a business, or maybe I've already started or bought businesses, but I want to continue to expand wherever I'm at. Where's the opportunity? Is there opportunity to, does it make sense to go out and be looking for businesses to buy? Right. And you just said like a lot of these businesses are going to kind of go away. It's going to thin the herd. Should we be looking for some of these businesses that are being thinned out and taking advantage of that situation? Obviously we don't want to take advantage of people, but I mean take advantage of the situation and be able to buy some of these companies that we can maybe come in and improve. Does that make sense? Should we be starting our own? Like what do you see there? Where do you see the opportunity, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at.
Well, I think there's great opportunities to buy really great companies that are going to struggle in this time period because they don't have the capitalization, or they got overextended, or sometimes what happens when you get a crisis like this, somebody was just at that point where they've had enough, and it just sort of is that final piece. So this is a great time to go find a business that is going to be very successful on the other side of this crisis. I mean, the company I mentioned that I bought in December, the reason I bought it is because it was the perfect example of the kind of business where I've seen what we do for our marketing work really well. Somebody who takes great care of their customers, generates referrals. Now all we got to do is the marketing that amplifies the effect of that, creates more referrals. And so I bought the company so I could capture the full value of taking it to market. And fortunately, we make clean room furniture, which is still very appropriate in this environment because of the explosion on the sort of pharma side. Everything's going online, so semiconductor is going to do great. So if you extend the trends you're seeing today, and you see a business that's going to leverage that, then this is going to be an ideal time to go buy a company if you have the ability to make it to the other side.
And that's probably the key, right? If you have the ability to make it up to the other side. So understand what's happening today, understand how that's going to affect that business that you're buying. The trends that are coming, obviously we go, okay, there's opportunity here. But if today we can't make it to where that becomes reality, that's probably a bad position to be buying a business in. Where do you find, like the business that you bought? Maybe you don't have to give me the source, but where do you find businesses? Somebody that wants to look for buying a business, are there certain sources that are better than others? We can go to a business broker. Is that where you go, or like what do you do?
My preference is actually to network, because you get a more real view of the business. And so developing that relationship before it's being sold to you, I think has a lot of advantages. So yeah, you can definitely go to business brokers, and there are very credible ones that are good at this. And if you're talking about sort of small business, Main Street business, there's really not enough competition where even though they're with a broker, that you're likely to end up in a real beauty contest kind of situation. So it's perfectly reasonable, but I would much prefer to be embedded in the business community, understand those businesses and network there, because I want to know the history and the depth of the business if I'm going to make that investment.
Got it. Makes sense. Give me a mistake, a failure, something that you can give to our audience, something that you did that, or direction or whatever, but something you've learned from. I want to know the mistake you made, and then how did you learn from it? How did you improve?
Yes, I think one of the biggest mistakes that I've made several times was not being willing to accept mentorship and help from people who've already been there and done it. So, this comes from that, being young and stupid and thinking I know it all. That's why it took so long to build that business.
Yeah.
And then because it was eventually successful, I really thought I knew what I was doing. And, it turns out that every time you go build a company, it's actually really difficult. And absolutely, you learn from the prior experience. But one of the amazing abilities we have as humans is to project ourselves into a future and understand what that's going to look like. And whatever it is you want to do, somebody's already done it. So go find 3, 4, 5 people who've already been there, already done it. So I don't believe in the mentorship model of find the one perfect mentor. I think it's much more helpful to find a series of people who've already been there and done that. And generally my rule is 5, whether it's 5 clients, 5 mentors. By the time you talk to 5 people with the experience that you're interested in, as long as you get a reasonable amount of diversification in that, you know that market pretty darn well, whatever it is.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you'll hear, and some of it, is from negative people, but some of it's, especially if it's a credible source, the mentor that you really should be looking for, they're going to open your eyes. I've had a lot of people that have just really opened my eyes to the reality of it. When I thought, wow, this is a great opportunity, I'm going to grab this opportunity, I'm going to go with it. And they go, whoa, wait a second now. Here are some things to really look out for. This could be an amazing opportunity, but we'll just make sure you understand, these moving parts to it. And you go, oh, yeah, you're right. I didn't even see that. And now, yeah, maybe it's still an opportunity, but it's different, right? And I need to slow down, and I need to make sure it truly checks all the boxes. So many times.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons I really like having more than one mentor, because
Yeah.
if you really believe in yourself and you have that strong, I can make this work no matter what. When you hear it from one person and they say, well, you really got to worry about this. For me, at least, I find it easy to overcome that.
Yeah.
But then you get to the second person, the third person, who all have the same experience, and you hear that same problem, that finally starts to get through. You know what?
Yeah.
That may actually be a real problem.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like you said, that first person, you're going, whatever. They're just negative. They let something burn them, and they're negative about it. But when you hear it by these 5 mentors or 3 mentors or whatever it is, and they kind of say, hey, check this out before you get going. Oh, okay. Now I got something here. What's a favorite book that you can give to our listeners?
A book that I think is really appropriate for the kind of things we've been talking about here is Simon Sinek's new book. I've always loved his work. His work on Start with the Why has been very instrumental in how I've always thought about business. I really love the book he came out with last year, The Infinite Game, because it really talks about doing business for the right reasons. Like we have this amazing tool in capitalism that has created more good than any other thing we've ever come up with in the history of mankind. And he really talks about how you can leverage that and make that happen by playing the infinite game, which is really more compelling for all of us. We all want to be part of something bigger.
Yeah, for sure. What's the plan? What's the plan going forward? Where do you see yourself in the next, 5 years, 10 years, whatever that vision board says? Where do you see yourself going, your company going?
Well, I'm really lucky to be getting to do exactly what I want to do right now. So I don't have any big changes to that, because I get to work with a lot of entrepreneurs who are doing really amazing and compelling things. I get to work with business owners all over the country, helping them grow. I just want to keep doing that. Like, it's what I love. It's why I'm doing it.
Awesome. I got one last question before I wrap up. What are your 3 pillars of wealth creation?
So I'm going to narrow it down to one key element, which is investing in things that make money without you having to do the work is absolutely the key, right? So it's when you do real estate investing well, which I have some, it works really well. I actually prefer the operating business approach. So I'd rather buy a business that is working well and has really good cash flow, and bring in a manager to run that. That to me is the ideal investment, because the place you really want to be is where your money is making your core cash flow for you. because then you get to do whatever you want, right? It gives me the freedom to work on the businesses that are really compelling to me, because I have this base that just does really well on its own.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, Bill, look, I really appreciate your time and the value you've been able to give. How can our listeners learn more about, kind of what you've got going on, get to know you, and learn more about you?
Yeah, so you can reach out to me at ceo@boomtime.com. Our website, of course, is at boomtime.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, where I talk about all of the things that we do from a marketing standpoint. The best marketing is giving your expertise away for free, and that's exactly what we do.
Yeah. Final parting words. What do you want to leave our listeners with?
The key. I want to circle back to marketing for just a second. The key to great marketing is don't talk about yourself and be consistent. Like, it's the two mistakes I see over and over again. And so if you just choose to change those two things, the investment you'll get back on your marketing you'll actually get an ROI in your marketing. Like, that's the biggest problem with marketing, is all the things you've done in the past that haven't worked. It is very reasonable to actually get a really good return on your marketing if you just fix those two core mistakes that I see over and over again.
Awesome. Well, Bill, appreciate it. Thanks a lot for joining us on the show, and you have a fantastic rest of the day.
Thanks, Todd.
Hey, thanks, Bill Bice, for joining us on the show. I appreciate the value that you're able to bring. A couple things that I took from this episode is timing. And as Bill talked about, look, persistence to stay in the game. And a lot of what we do is up to timing. And sometimes you enter the market a little too early. You might be entering it late in a cycle, and so you have to wait, especially in real estate, in really any investing, there's cycles, and so it's all about timing and being persistent. He also talks about not scaling too early. I think that's really important. A lot of people have scaled rapidly, and they think that it's a great thing to do, especially in a good economy where it seems so easy. We scale so early, and we didn't make that blueprint like he mentioned. So make that blueprint first, and take your time to scale. Make sure you're doing it the right way. And then the last thing is, invest in things that make money without you. Which is going to create that financial freedom that we're all really looking for. So again, appreciate Bill for coming on the show and sharing a ton of value. Take one thing from this episode, apply it to your business, apply it to your life, and make sure it's a habit. Make it a habit. Make it a part of your everyday. I'm Todd Dexheimer. I'm signing out. Make every day a Saturday. Hey, thanks so much for listening. I appreciate you being a loyal listener. I would love to have you go on to our Facebook page and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Go on to iTunes or wherever you listen and give us a rating and review. Don't forget to subscribe. Your rating and review just helps us push this out to more and more people and continue to grow our audience, and hopefully positively affect a ton of people out there that really need this and want this. So the other thing I've got for you is a free ebook on my website. So go on to venturedproperties.com, and download our free ebook on real estate and on syndication. And I've got some data points in there, some really good stuff for you. So I'd love to have you take a look at that. It's free. I'm not expecting anything from it. And also, look, if you want some help in multifamily, want some help learning, growing, getting your business off the ground, I would love to talk to you about what it would look like to work with me potentially and see if that's a good fit. So you can go to coachwithdex.com and check that out, and we can definitely have a call. Thanks a lot for listening. You make it a fantastic rest of the day. I'll catch you on the next episode.